Hey everyone, it's Mr. Miles. Just wanted to give a quick video for my Mythology Masters about what to do for tomorrow, February the 15th, for Digital Learning Day. Okay, so what you have to do is first off, make sure that you're all caught up with Heracles because you do have a test on Heracles this week. So what I would go ahead and do is I would take a look at these review quizzes. I've assigned them to you as homework. You don't have to do them. It's just another study tool in case you want to study with them. Uh, this is the Clash of the Gods video for Heracles. I did not show you this in class, but in case you would like to watch a high quality, high budget video about Heracles, you're welcome to watch that. And then again, don't forget your Hercules brochure project instructions. Those are right there. Okay. Let's talk about the actual Digital Learning Day assignment. Okay. It's actually not that extensive, but there are three things that you're going to have to kind of go back and forth between to finish it. Okay. So the first thing you're going to have to do is this is the actual text or document you're going to be filling out. Okay. And so this is kind of like your activator activity. What is an archetype? What is the etymology of archetypes? What is an archetype's purpose? Why would an author use an archetype? So on and so forth. And then you get into the kind of the two parts that kind of concern us moving into our next unit after we wrap up Heracles. So first off, you got character archetypes. These are the kinds of figures that you see often in myths and stories, and they're not just myths, like superhero movies, Star Wars. You can think about pretty much any movie or book or TV show, and you can probably find characters that fit the archetypes of the protagonist, the mentor, the ally or sidekick, the shapeshifter, the temptress. And so to kind of figure out what these archetypes mean, you have this sheet, which kind of explains what each of these archetypes are meant to do and what their functions are um, in a story. Okay, you've got heroes who are like the protagonists. You've got shadows, which are like the either external antagonist or it can be an internal force that's kind of like the hero's dark side, right? So it can be like it could be an external thing that's bad, stopping the hero from reaching their potential. It can also be an internal thing that the hero has to overcome as well, like fear or self doubt, something like that. Mentor, self-explanatory. Herald is a person or a figure or an animal or really just anything that brings a call to adventure, which is the point where the hero stops being ordinary and has to go on their quest. You got the threshold guardians, which are basically just enemies, antagonists, forces that kind of stop or impede progress of the hero. So think of like the clashing rocks, the harpies. These are all kind of checkpoints, right? These are kind of like threshold guardians, enemies you have to overcome to get to the ultimate goal. Shapeshifters can literally be like a shapeshifter, like a werewolf or a vampire or something that literally changes its shape. But it doesn't always have to be. It can also be something that changes its identity or it changes its allegiance. So think of like a traitor, right? A figure who starts off on the good side but betrays the good side and turns bad, right? Like that would be a kind of shapeshifter, is a traitor. Okay, so it can be a literal shapeshifter or it can be a figurative one. Tricksters, people who make mischief, people who enjoy tricking people, clever, cunning. The allies are just the people who help along the way, whether they lend them their strength, lend them their intelligence, lend them whatever. Usually part of a team or a sidekick. Like these are just allies, people who help. And then you usually have a tempter or a temptress figure. Basically like this figure is meant to sort of embody the the base desires of the hero. What is, if the hero gives into this temptation, then he will be thrown off his quest, and he'll be thrown off of the the proper, true path um, to righteousness and to ultimate salvation and satisfaction. So the temptress is kind of there to distract him and basically, get him into a ditch, because of the goo goo eyes and stuff that the temptress is giving him. So it's a female character who kind of just offers a distraction for the hero, and the hero has to resist the temptation um, to reach his potential. Although sometimes the hero, especially in Greek mythology, if we're thinking like Odysseus, he doesn't necessarily get uh, he doesn't resist the temptation very well, and so there are times when he gives into the temptation, like Odysseus did with Circe or Calypso, but he realizes that if I stay on Calypso's island forever, I will never make it all the way back to my wife, and so it's less about not giving into the temptation, period, and more about, well, I gave into the temptation. How long am I going to keep living in this temptation, this temptress figure? And like I said, usually it's a woman. It doesn't always have to be. If you remember the Odyssey, there was the land of the lotus eaters, right? Who basically got high from eating this plant, and they forgot home. And Odysseus was like, "No, we can't forget about home. We have to remember why we're here." Um, and so the temptress is usually a female figure, but it doesn't always have to be. It can just be any kind of temptation to indulge in pleasure of some kind. Okay. Um, and so those are kind of the archetypes. So what you're going to do is you're going to basically just kind of list those archetypes, those traits, and then I want you to think about movies, books, comic books, TV shows, video games, whatever uh, medium you want, and I want you to try to find examples of those things. Okay, so protagonists, well, obviously Luke Skywalker, Spider-Man, like, think about all the protagonists or heroes that you can think of, and find examples for all these archetypes in the types of stories that you enjoy. You don't have to necessarily stick to stories that everybody wants to talk about, like comic book movies or things like that. If you want to talk about a Disney movie, you can find all these archetypes in the Disney movie as well. Okay. um, Once you finish all the archetypes on that section, you're going to do the same thing with the hero's journey. This sheet gives you a little illustration of the hero's journey, basically kind of the plot structure of what it looks like. A lot of times we picture plot structure as like the shark fin or the roller coaster, kind of like a triangle. You go up, you get to the climax at the very top, at the apex, and then you go down to the falling action and the resolution. It doesn't have to always be that way. The hero's journey is more circular. Okay, there's always a part three, a return um, for the hero. Okay, um, so essentially, in a nutshell, this sheet is going to help you get information about what the hero's journey is. So the hero's journey, essentially what it is and why we care about it, especially here in mythology, is because it was developed by this guy, Joseph Campbell. Joseph Campbell essentially was a psychologist slash mythology expert who basically discovered that if you took every single myth, every single story, every single culture, and you laid them all out side by side, essentially what you would get is you would see similar tropes and cliches and ideas being used in every single story. Regardless of how different the subject matter was, all of these shared similar things. Um, and so, what Joseph Campbell sort of laid out for everybody is sort of the hero's journey, this circle here, as kind of the ultimate, most general structure for this hero's journey myth. Okay. And it's a structure that we still use today. Star Wars, Beowulf, all these heroic stories, Spider Man, uh, you know, any Spider Man movie, Superman movie, these all kind of follow a similar structure. Okay. And so, what they have in common are these specific moments in the story. Okay. These are kind of like stages in the hero's journey. Um, and I know that you may have talked about this in Dr. Presnell's class, but I'm going to just explain it like you have no knowledge of this whatsoever. I'm just going to start from square one. So basically, you've got the hero starts in the normal world, the ordinary world, but usually the hero has a kind of uh, outsider element to him or her. They're kind of like an exile. In other words, that they feel like an outsider. They feel like a stranger in the world they live in. They don't feel like they belong in the ordinary world they inhabit. Okay. So normally what that means is they're not raised by a happily married set of parents. Usually oftentimes they're raised by aunts or uncles, or they're raised by a stepfather or stepmother, or they're inhabiting this world where they're an outsider and they just feel like something isn't quite right. They don't quite belong. Harry Potter is raised by the Dursleys, right? Like he's not in a happy home. He feels like something has always been different about him, and so that's kind of where most heroes' journey stories start. Okay, and then you get the call. Okay, the calling, sometimes called the call to adventure. What this is a moment happens that sort of triggers the hero's journey to start, that sort of triggers the hero to set off on the path to adventure. In Lord of the Rings, Frodo gets the ring and realizes that it's actually an evil ring where the evil Dark Lord Sauron has poured all of his dark hatred and malice and enmity into this ring. And if it falls into the hands of Sauron again, he will rule the world and destroy everything. And so Frodo realizes, I have to do something about that. And so that sets him on his path. He hasn't figured out exactly what he wants to do with the ring yet, but it set him on his path of adventure. Okay. Similar to Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker gets these droids, and one of the droids has a message from this beautiful woman named Princess Leia who's saying, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Well, to Luke, that sounds an awful lot like the old Ben Kenobi guy who's like a hermit hanging around in the desert. Maybe I should go talk to him. So, whatever happens, this call to adventure, okay, is something that sets the hero on his road to adventure. Now, usually we divide this into two sections. There is the call to adventure and there is the refusal of the call. Normally, the hero is reluctant to start the adventure. They don't really want to do it. They don't, Luke Skywalker's like, I'm just a scruffy looking nerf herder. I don't want to, go and defeat the Galactic Empire. I'm just a farm roll. I'm a moisture farmer from Tatooine. I don't want to do all this. And, you know, uh, Harry Potter initially is like, wait, this is all for me? I don't understand. So usually there's a refusal or a hesitancy to just dive headfirst into adventure, but eventually the hero overcomes that and decides to dive into the outside world, the new world, the unknown. Okay. Um, so then once you decide to move into this unknown space, you have this literal section of the hero's journey where you move from part one to part two, and this is called the crossing of the threshold. The threshold is kind of like threshold means doorway, right? So you're crossing a doorway or a gate to a new part of the universe that you haven't experienced yet. Okay, it's called the unknown. Okay, and so what that is I think of like Lord of the Rings. If you've ever seen those movies, the moment where Samwise is saying, "If I take one more step, I'll be the farthest away from home I'll ever been." Like that's literally crossing the threshold. He is moving into the unknown, where everything is different and everything's a lot more dangerous, and he doesn't know what to expect. Okay. Um, After that, once you are into the world of the unknown, you have the time of the trials, and the trials are exactly what it sounds like. They are ordeals or tests or moments of doubt and danger where the hero has to overcome it, find something within himself to do and overcome these obstacles. Um, if you want to go back to Jason the Argonauts, it's you got to yoke the bulls, you got to sow the dragon's teeth, you got to fight the army that pops up when the dragon's teeth. Right? You have to overcome all these little trials and ordeals. Okay, and then what you usually have after that is you have a descent. You go into the abyss, and if you look at it on this map, this is what it is. Sometimes it's called descent into the abyss. Sometimes it's called the belly of the whale. Sometimes it's called the underworld. Whatever you call it, it's a similar thing where essentially you have to go to the deepest, darkest point to get whatever it is you need um, to vanquish the enemy or overcome the evil or whatever. And you see this literally in every hero story. There is a moment where everything seems darkest, right? You have uh, you literally have Odysseus journey to the entrance of the underworld in the Odyssey. You literally have Aeneas journey to the underworld in the Aeneid. You have um, Jason having to go into the grove where the golden fleece is and take the golden fleece from the dragon. You have uh, Luke Skywalker, who literally has to dive into the channel of the Death Star and fire his missile, right? Like it is the moment where everything seems darkest and lost, right? It's the underworld, the abyss, the belly of the whale, right? And usually from this there comes revelation or some kind of truth where the hero can overcome whatever force they're up against. Okay, so so that's the descent. Okay, um, and then it's not enough to just have the climax in the movie. Everybody wins, the hero succeeds, yay, we all cheer, and it's all over. Usually there has to be a part three. And the part three, after the abyss, the hero returns. Okay, the hero comes back home. And the reason the hero has to come back home is because now he is older, he is wiser, and now that he has succeeded and become the hero that he knew he always could be, he has to impart that knowledge and wisdom to the world that he has left behind. He has to return to that world and impart that knowledge. So at the end of the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter grows up. He has kids. He teaches those kids the lessons that he's learned. Luke Skywalker, the movie doesn't end after he blows up the Death Star. He has to come back. He has to get his medal. He has to show the world that, yes, I am Luke Skywalker and I have come back to put the galaxy back together again, right? Jason and the Argonauts, literally, once they get the Golden Fleece, they have to come back to Iolcus. They have to come back to Thessaly with the Golden Fleece. So there has to be a return journey for the hero. And so, whatever lessons, whatever insight, whatever revelation or enlightenment that he's gained, he has to take it back to the ordinary world with him. Um, and usually, we call that this. We call that the boon. Sometimes it's called the gift of the goddess. Um, Sometimes it's called the elixir. It's called a lot of things, but it's just basically what magical thing or magical uh, gift can the hero give the people that he's left behind? And so you have basically two kinds of this. You have the public boon, which is a benefit to society, um, maybe like physical, like object. It could be like here's an awesome new way of making bricks, right? That now we can build our walls even higher and even stronger so nobody can conquer us, right? Like, so maybe it's a public gift, okay, that he bestows on everybody. Or, and usually at the same time, he achieves a personal boon, which is political power, wealth, status, a wife, a husband, um, you know, something that the hero personally gains out of all this. Okay. So that's what the public boon, the gift of the goddess, the magical elixir, whatever you want to call it, that stage of the hero's journey is. And there's more stages. Like, you can split it up into more individual stages than I've listed here, but these are kind of like the main ones, the ones that you probably have to know. Okay. And so that's really it. So when you go back to this, you describe it, provide examples, again, from any book, movie, video game, TV show, whatever, um, and do all that. Fill it all out. Then, down here at the very bottom, once you've finished all that, once you've taken away something about the hero's journey, about these archetypes, then you give me a 6-word summary. And that is basically just summarize what you've learned into a 6-word sentence. Okay. So, maybe if it's something about an archetype, you would say, archetypes are the foundation of stories, right? Or something like that. You can't use that one. Don't take that one. Okay. But just something like that. So summarize what you learned into 6 words, no more. no less. Exactly 6 words. Okay. Um, and that'll tell me that you were able to kind of put some thought into what you learned. Okay. But yeah, so that's it. If you got any questions or anything like that, shoot me an email, shoot me a remind. That's it for your Digital Learning Day assignment. And like I said, don't forget about the Heracles test. If you want to review that, I posted those things on Google Classroom. That's it. See you on Thursday.